Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success Podcast with me, Christian Harris. I'm joined today by Josh Jackson, who's the CEO and founder of SafetyGPT, which is a really innovative business working in the AI and safety space. Josh is going to share some of his background and what got him interested in and motivated by safety. He's worked in some really interesting organizations and done some fascinating stuff over the years that have all led him to this point. We're going to chat a bit about AI. What is it? How is it applicable to safety? What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the blockers? And what are some of the steps that you should take if you're starting out on this journey, in Josh's opinion, to get started and really leveraging and maximizing the benefits that AI can bring. And then we'll finish off with an overview, a bit more detail of what SafetyGPT is up to. Hope you enjoy this episode. If you're not on the AI bandwagon, I would really encourage you to use this as a prompt, no pun intended, to get started and start looking into this, because it is fundamentally changing not only the world, but more specifically the world of safety. So I'm sure you'll get a lot from this episode and hope you enjoy it. Cheers.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success Podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Thanks for joining me on the podcast today, Josh.
It's good to see you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no, we've finally made it work. It's been quite difficult because you've been mega busy, which we'll hear about in a minute.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we could get the time together. I know that we've been talking about this almost a year, so it's great to finally connect.
Well, and as I'm sure we're going to talk about, a lot happens in a year in the world in general, but obviously in the space that you're in, huge amounts are happening in weeks, never mind years. So maybe we could start by just giving a bit of context and background into your kind of career and your journey and what's kind of led you up to doing what you're doing now.
I'd love to, Christian. So I'll try to make this brief so we can get on to the good stuff. So I'll start with this. Former NASA engineer, former safety manager. Whenever I graduated college, I worked as a safety manager in a box plant. I know that sounds exciting, seeing boxes put together, but there were 300 people in that facility. And Christian, the wild thing is I still remember my first recordable, right? So I was the quintessential example of somebody who should not have been a safety manager. Did not know OSHA. I didn't know what a recordable was. I didn't know what condition-based audits were, right? And I was responsible for 300 people. Doesn't make any sense. It's a young 21-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So, I slowly started learning, and it was 2 months into the job. We had an upset condition. Our warehouse manager, one of the forklift drivers, didn't show up, right? Upset condition. And the way that our plant worked, we had one side, which was a corrugator, and they would make the sheets to make the boxes. And on the other side, they'd fold the boxes, right?
Yeah.
So you had work in process. If that work in process got full, the corrugator went down, the glue would solidify, and you were down for 2 days, right? Major pressure, right, to get that material moved. Long story short, person didn't show up. Guy was in a forklift, running with his forks too close to the ground, ran into a steel plate. Guess what won? The steel plate, right?
Yeah.
Blew him straight through the front of the forklift, landed on his head. Luckily, he was okay, but he got a recorder, okay? That was my first exposure to how quickly things can go wrong. Okay? Over the course of about 3 years while I was there, Christian, I ended up being on the audit team for Weyerhaeuser. Weyerhaeuser, if you guys don't know, is one of the U.S.'s largest building materials companies.
Okay.
They make engineered wood products. So think about those wooden eye joists. They're the ones who create it, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so fast forward 3 years, I'm doing audits all over the place, and I get promoted into a sales software engineering role. And I almost died. So I am professionally trained safety manager. Okay. I'm doing audits for the company I go to other people's locations and tell them what to do to stay safe. I'm ISO certified, and I almost got killed on the job. So what happened? So it was 2005. I woke on the job site. A gentleman is building a 4-story house here in the States, and we go by square footage over here, so bear with me. So it was about a 4,000 square foot house, right? So a good sized house, 3 stories. He was on the top floor, and he had pre-built a wall. And he usually had a team of 6. 4 people showed up that day, upset condition. Right?
Yeah.
So he asked me, hey, Josh, can you help us lift this wall into place? Christian, I played college basketball. I am built for this. Like, I got muscles, I got hair, I'm excited, right? I walk up and we go to lift up the wall and we get it above our head. There's 6 of us. Well, what we didn't know is that the builder used plastic straps on the hinge point of that wall. Those plastic straps had been on the job site for 6 months. They were brittle. So when that force of the wall, as we pushed it up, started pushing down on that hinge point, it broke. Next thing I know, I'm sitting on my butt. I'm 6'5", I'm not a short dude. And my nose is that far from my kneecaps. I'm getting crushed like a card. Get crushed alive. Luckily, 2 individuals, Christian, fell face first instead of butt first. They were on their hands and knees. 2 guys were holding up that wall to keep the other 4 of us getting crushed. So we get out from underneath the wall, we hold it up, they get out, we drop the wall. Yay, everybody's safe. Christian, $8. $8 almost killed us.
Yeah.
Those $8 were the studs that were supposed to brace that wall as somebody's lifting it into place for that exact situation. That's when I realized knowledge gaps kill people. The builder did not understand proper bracing techniques for that wall. If he understood it, he would have done it, but he had never been hurt. So that's where I started dedicating my life to solving this challenge of, information gaps. I like to think of it in 3 things: complacency, complexity, and employee engagement. Right? Yep. Complacency is, I've never been hurt doing this. I'm never going to get hurt in the future.
Yep.
Right? Complexity is, it's all this information in theory that we have locked behind, cabinets, and we never put them into application. Like, human performance is great, hard to apply. BBO is great, it's hard to apply. So gimbal walks are great, hard to apply. So how do we take these complex needed theories and turn them into practical application so that a worker can go home safe? So that was the hypothesis all the way back in 2005. Yeah. So Christian, then I went to a company that leveraged IBM Watson. This was right after I almost got killed. It was in 2006. And we started applying it to what was back then called behavior-based safety, BBS. Today it's called BBO. That's how long I've been in this. And by the way, I still call it MSDS. Forgive me. That's how far back I go.
Yeah.
So in that organization, what I realized, Christian, was data had to be engineered and architected in a very specific way for AI to work, right? I would give you something that you could capture information, but you had to capture it like I told you to. You needed to do it in the frequency I told you to, and you needed to do it in the manner I told you to. That's not real world. That's called a lab, right? And so we were able to see in real time how the power of AI could predict when you were at higher risk for injuries, but I couldn't tell you why it was going to happen. I couldn't tell you when it was going to happen. I could give you a 30-day range, and I couldn't tell you how to mitigate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I told you you're going to have an incident. Now what are you going to do? You're going to guess, right? And so since then, I've been in the startup world. I've been CRO, CGO, Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Growth Officer, Chief Executive Officer. I've exited out of 2 startups. And I found a passion for startups, monetizing ideas, right? Yeah. And my last stint, and then I'll turn it over to another question. My last stint was with another safety technology company. A private equity group hired me to come in and run that group. And when I got in, I noticed it was a SQL database and Excel spreadsheets. The industry had not moved forward, right? And I got so mad because I know workers. I am a worker. This is not helping those workers.
Mm.
A PowerPoint with a voiceover from 1992 for your training is not going to help your workers. We can do better. And so that's where the idea was born from. But before I jump into the idea, do you have any questions about my past or dig deep in any areas?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it'd be interesting to think about, you know, did you see what's happened coming from that perspective of AI? If you were involved in it all those years ago, did you kind of see that it would have this kind of really transformative effect? Not so much yet, maybe on safety, but on the world that's happened in the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, so there's certain things I can't talk about because of NDAs, but I have consulted with some of the largest companies on the globe on their AI strategies. I've been in AI since 2008. I've been deep in it. So, so natural language processing, OCR, image processing, ontologies. I'm going to use some fancy data science terms, but all it simply means is connecting data using data in a specific way.
Yeah.
Gen AI is just the next evolution of natural language processing. It's the next evolution, multimodal of OCR. Have you used a Scantron? We've all used Scantrons, right? In school.
Yeah.
That's early versions of AI. It's image processing at its very basic level, but that's where it all started, right?
Hmm.
Did I see it going here with the unstructured? Absolutely not. Data engineering, data architecture were the two primary impediments for AI to go global and mass adoption. And to give an example, if you were to talk to a major oil and gas company, it's over in the Netherlands. They did a project about 3 years ago, and it cost them about $4 million. And what they tried to do 4 years ago is what we're doing today with Gen AI. And here's the fundamental difference. That $4 million project, it took 2 years to deliver, right? Data engineering, data architecture, connection of all those data lakes, blah, 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 right? I could do the same project today for about 250,000. I could get it done in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what's changed. Did not see this coming.
Hmm.
Anyone who said they saw it coming, they're not telling the truth.
No, I was hoping to catch you out and get you to say, yeah, I predicted this.
Absolutely not. I did not see this coming.
Um, and I mean, at a sort of global level, very, very in the, 40,000 feet level, how would you see AI reshaping safety in the workplace?
I think there's going to be a fundamental shift. And I'll kind of reference this to U.S. Standards because I've got those
Yeah.
deep in my head. But I'll just reference something. We've been killing 6,000 people every year for 20 years. It's not working, Christian. It's not working. What we're doing is not working. Yeah, it's only 6,000 people. I'm sorry, we're killing twice as many people as what happened on 9/11 every year. Where's their memorial, right? Let's wake up. Let's think about things differently. So here's the impact that I see it having. A majority of safety managers today, they're having to spend their time in areas that are not the highest impact for safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think of safety very simplistic. It's people first, tech forward. People first. Critical conversations is what keep people safe. Interactions from peer to peer and manager to peer, human to human interactions is what keep people safe. And so what I see is AI is going to remove the barriers of traditional safety processes. This is going to upset some of my safety brethren, but bear with me, guys. Bear with me. If we have punitive capabilities, by definition, we are a cop. No matter what you say, if you can fire an employee because of a safety infraction, you are a safety cop. Okay? That is the structure we've had to build because of limitations in access to information, right? So I race cars. I've got an M3 back there in my background. I beat the snot out of it. I couldn't race that car if I didn't know how to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
The cost would be too much just to change the oil. So what happened? I had access to information. I removed barriers. And now I can do the work on it, and I've got a mechanic I can call when I need help. Same
Yep.
thing's going to happen in safety. Okay. Here's what normally happens in safety. I train you, Christian, on slip, trips, falls, right? I train you January 1st. And then I have a worker requirement that says I got to train you every year. So next year I'm going to train you again, right? Then you go out and work, okay? Come June, you forget about our slip, trip, and fall training, right? I can't remember what I ate last week. How do we expect our employees to remember training from 6 months ago?
Yeah.
And now when you get hurt, you know what I do? I do an incident investigation, and my first question is, Christian, were you trained?
Were you trained? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm not a robot. I don't remember it, right? And so that separation between knowing what to do in the moment versus being trained is what's killing people. So how I see AI impacting the industry, it's going to change that dynamic of top down. I hope I'm working safely and my manager will tell me if I'm not. Now, Christian, you've been trained. Let's switch the example to working at height. You've been trained on ladder safety. Okay? You haven't used a ladder in 3 months. You go grab an A-frame ladder. Now you take a photo of it. Give me best practices on ladder safety. And it gives you the information in the language that you prefer. And now you come to me and go, hey, Josh, I'm about to use this ladder over here, and it says 3 points of contact. It also tells me to inspect every rung, make sure there's no cracks or any separation in bolts. I noticed there's a crack in this one. Hey, Josh, can you replace the ladder for me? Absolutely. And am I clear on the safety stuff? Yes. You're good to go, brother. Do you see how that's fundamentally different?
Yeah.
You're teaching them how to fish. You're not going and catching the fish and then teaching them how to eat it.
Mm.
That is the beginning stages of AI. Now, where it's going to go in the future, it's going to analyze everything for you. It's going to make recommendations for you. And you, as the professional, will decide what is applicable. And so this goes to a common saying that I use in my conversations. Our responses, they're going to be accurate. The question is, are they applicable?
Yeah.
I will never know that. That's why we need the human being. Your knowledge of that space and slips, trips, and falls, I can never replace with tech. No matter how good my vision is, right? And my safety vision. So take a photo, ask a safety question, review with your manager, have a safe day. That's the impact that we're seeing today.
Nice, nice. And one of the things that we spoke about was the difference between generic AI and custom AI. So could you talk a bit about that? Because there'll be people that are joining us who are going to be quite geeky on this, but I imagine there'll be more people who don't know that much and they'll have a rough idea, but the detail will be useful.
So you could probably already tell I'm a disruptor. So I'm probably going to say some things that are going to disrupt some people's.
That's good. It's always good to be disruptive, I think.
You're going to get all kinds of good comments. So here is my 2 cents. Don't use ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot for safety. You're putting yourself at risk. And here's the problem with it. Would you take a go-kart chassis and turn it into an F1 car? No, that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Why in the world would you take a go-kart chassis and turn it into an F1 car? Well, they both go fast. Yeah, but it's completely different purposes. It's the same thing. They're called foundation models for a reason. Foundation. What do you build on top of a foundation? You build a fit for purpose structure. And I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings with this. Prompt engineering, guys, is saying that you can use Google search really well. It doesn't solve the fundamental problem that what you're building on is a go-kart chassis, not an F1 chassis. Okay? So here's my advice. ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. I've got very strong ties with Microsoft. Both of those are built so you can ask it dad jokes, cat photos, review your resume, right?
Yep.
It's not built for technical documentation. So what we're doing as a group is we're using AI in the wrong way. It's not generative AI. And that's another problem when people try to solve it with prompt engineering. It's not a Gen AI problem. It's actually solved with a hybrid AI approach, right? And that includes large language models, which is ChatGPT. There's 600 of those, by the way, and the new one's being created about every 2 weeks. So we don't use ChatGPT or any of their stuff. We actually found a model that is very unique, and it's very good at technical data. And I'll talk about the sun and the orbiting system and all that stuff. That's what we built our foundation off of. It took us 17 months to build this. That's why I say you can't prompt engineer your way out of it. It's fundamentally flawed. So I'll give this example, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Christian, for another question. In very, very simplistic terms, and my data science people do this because it's not 100% accurate, but it's directionally accurate so that we can understand how these systems work. Think of ChatGPT as the sun in a solar system, okay? What happens today, Christian, when you ask a question to ChatGPT, question goes into the sun, does some black magic, gives you an answer, right? And you're like, oh man, this is awesome. Well, what we found is that these foundation models can be wrong 30% of the time. The problem is that ChatGPT, when you go to check it, it may be right 1,000 times in a row. And then it'll be wrong. And then 300 times it's going to be right. And then it'll be wrong a bunch. And then 20 times it'll be right. And then it'll be wrong 30 times. The problem is I couldn't predict when it was going to be wrong. That's a problem, right?
If you're relying on it for safety, it is. Yeah. If you're writing jokes for Facebook, then it's not so bad.
Exactly. Or you're trying to revamp your resume, or like what I use ChatGPT. You know what I use it for? After meetings, talk to text in the app, and I say, hey, create a summary report on this meeting. It's wonderful for that. Don't use it for critical tasks. And the EU is leading this with their regulations, where you have to actually prove your model confidence scores and how you test your models. It's called level 3 in the EU. Those regulations are going to go wider. That's a good thing. So here's the difference. Your question goes into the sun, black magic, comes back to you, you go about your day. Here's how purpose-built AI is different. So the way that ours works is you've got the solar system in the middle, and I can take the sun out, and if you create a large language model that's better, I'll just grab yours and put it in the middle, right? So it's always up to date. And I'm not tied to Microsoft, Google, or OpenAI or Meta. I'm not tied to anybody. That's important. So the question goes into the sun, does its black magic, but instead of going back to the user, now it goes to the planets, okay? This is how it's different. The planets are in an area called a knowledge graph. That reasoning layer, right, that's around the sun, houses planets. Each one of those planets, think of them like a library. Okay? The way that we organize that library, which is Dewey Decimal System, if you guys have heard of that from our old high school days, we're organizing the data in there. And there's a technique called clumping and clustering, which is a data science technique. And guys, I'm giving you verbiage, so when you hear AI, ask them questions about this, because it'll tell you whether or not they're just repainting ChatGPT. Which you don't want to pay for that. So the first planet in my scenario, let's say I live in California, is going to be Cal-OSHA. Why? Because Cal-OSHA supersedes federal OSHA, right? As long as it doesn't negate federal OSHA. So it goes Cal-OSHA, then the next planet is federal OSHA, then the next planet is NFPA, next planet is ANSI, next planet is ASTM, next planet, so forth and so on. There's 45 of them. Now, planets also have moons that orbit them. You've seen the post on LinkedIn. Even PhDs are doing this. And guys, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If you ask a large language model to do math, it will fail every time. Large language model. You actually have to build a scientific model when you want to do math, and it goes to the scientific model, which is a moon that orbits one of the planets. It'll do the calculation, and then it'll send that information into the response. So every time I see someone talking about that, I'm like, oh my God, these people are in data science and they don't know this.
Yeah.
So LLMs are not built for math. Quit trying to say it's wrong. It's just not built for it. But you can build the reasoning layer around it to incorporate. So here's the difference. Ready? The answer goes into the sun. The output doesn't come back to you. It goes to the first planet. And it says, hey, verify this output with everything you have in this library. Second planet, third planet, fourth planet, fifth planet, sixth, all the way back to the 45th. And when I deliver your answer, it comes from the last planet. That's how I don't commingle your data. See? So that's why it's important to get purpose built, because it goes to that verification layer.
Yeah.
And whenever we get a response, I can tell you details on why it's giving you that. And the second thing is I can give you a confidence layer. I'll share this data point just for our audience. As you're evaluating AI, I've used accuracy terms, but here's really what you should know. People in data science don't talk about accuracy. They actually talk about confidence. And you know why, Christian? Because I could literally say right now, Christian, your shirt is black. And my accuracy would be 100%. You know why? Because it's wrong. And if I'm measuring based on wrong answers, I have 100% accuracy. You see how that's deceiving?
Mm.
It's confidence measures. That's what you look for. So that's the fundamental difference between what we call consumer grade, commercial grade, foundation versus purpose built. It's auditability, confidence, traceability. That's what you need.
Yeah. And so the planets then in your solar system, you mentioned the state regulations and then the OSHA regulations and so on. Are these all basically driven by different regulations and laws, or are there also some planets that are kind of I don't know, expert testimony or books, or how does that kind of work?
Absolutely. So we have a actual module called best practices. And every safety person on here is going to say, oh, compliance is the bare minimum. I agree. Compliance is the bare minimum, guys. So you got to make sure you're compliant first, and then build in best practices on top of it, right, to increase your performance. So to answer your question, absolutely. So there's actually a way where, and don't do this in generic models. You can upload documents in generic models, read the privacy document. It says your data is secure. However, all responses are kept in their database to commingle with everybody else's. What's in your response? It's the question you asked, right? So what we do is we upload it in its own planet. So let's say you've got a company and you're the expert on slip, trips, falls. You know more than anybody about it, not me. So what I would do is I would upload all your information. There's some clustering and clumping, Dewey Decimal System. I'd organize it in a way so that when you ask a question, it's accurate in the retrieval of the information. And then it verifies it as long as it doesn't negate the federal guidelines. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, that's what companies are doing today.
Yeah. Pretty, very, very, really interesting. And what about more broadly, things like video and images and that kind of thing? I mean, how kind of close are we to that being, rather than us having to type something in or speak something in, to be able to get out our phone and show a video, and then that would kind of go around your solar system, for example? How close are we to that?
Today.
Okay.
We're doing it. Yeah. And the example I'll share, Christian, it's called multimodal. Okay. And here's another term for the audience. GPT. What does it mean? It is a math terminology. It's like saying calculus, guys, right? So GPT is generative pre-trained transformers. Here's how it works, and then I'll talk to your image question. Think about a swimming pool full of Skittles, okay? And you've got an equal distribution of colors. That means you've got the same amount for every color, right, that Skittles has. In a giant in-ground swimming pool, okay? My job as Gen AI is to predict what's going to come next. But in reality, what I really need to do is predict the last one correctly. right? So I reach in, I pull a green skittle. Here's what GPT is doing. Generative pre-trained transformers. It sees the skittle and it goes, oh, here's the distribution of all the skittles. I pulled this from this specific coordinates in the swimming pool. I'm going to reach in that same coordinate. What's the chances I'm going to get yellow, green, red, blue, blah, 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 blah. And it puts a probability next to each one of them. Okay. Then when you pull the next one, it changes its prediction for the third skittle and the fourth skittle and the fifth skittle. But what it's doing now is it's looking at it in an additive form. So it's looking at the first, second, third, and fourth, not just the last skittle you pull. So by the time you get to the end skittle, you have high confidence it's going to be a red skittle. And it looks like it's thinking, but it's just math. It's math at a scale you can't imagine. It's just math, right? We do the same thing with photos. I take every pixel in the photo and I'm predicting what's coming next based on each pixel. And as the pixels come together, then I'm forming my final prediction. That's why it's so accurate. So the example I'll give, we literally saved a life. We've saved about 4 lives since going live. And Christian, that's more valuable than any amount of money we ever made.
Of course, yeah.
It almost makes me cry because the impact that has on families. And here's the example with photo. And I'm going to say their name because they're okay with it. Stout Building Contractors. They're in Utah. Wonderful group, only about 100 people, but they build like Dollar Generals here in the U.S. all across the country. Wonderful, wonderful company. They had a situation where they had someone who was up on a scissor lift. He was tied off correctly, thought he was tied off correctly. But one of their policies that they did was they said, hey, every morning, because they fully adopted Gen AI, they have their entire company using it. They said in the morning, we want you to approach someone and just ask them a simple question. What task today has you concerned about safety? Talk the text into Safety GPT, read a toolbox talk in their language, and send it to them. You've just done everything OSHA asked you to do. You identified a hazard, you mitigated the hazard, you trained the employee, you documented it, and you confirmed they understood. You did everything you're supposed to. The second thing that they implemented, once a day, take a photo of a high-risk activity. Use it for brainstorming, right? See if your bias has blinded you to potential areas of harm. So they go out and they take a photo of someone working on a scissor lift. The output says, hey, high severity, life-threatening event. The person in the scissor lift should not be anchored to the building. They should be anchored to the bucket in the scissor lift. The foreman looked at it and was like, this can't be right. Send it to his safety manager, review with your manager. He followed the process. Safety manager looks at it and goes, no, that's absolutely correct. He needs to anchor to the bucket, not the wall. They go talk to the employee. 2 weeks later, they're in the high desert. A microburst happens. That's not on the forecast, 70 mile per hour wind. The wall that individual was attached to fell. And because he was attached to the bucket, not the wall, he survived. That's the power of AI-guided safety in real-time moments with the right information. And that was driven off of a photo.
Very interesting. So what would be the challenges then, or what are you seeing as the challenges to adopting this? Is it that people are a bit scared? Is it that people are sort of not feel they're not techy enough? Is it that there's a kind of worry about replacement of kind of human judgment? What are the kind of blockers that we see in AI and safety?
It's new, and you're hearing the noise that we always hear when something's new, right? So I'm gonna rewind right to the late 70s, early 80s. Graphing calculators. When those came out, everybody was all up in arms. If you just Google it, look at the news articles. Oh, it's going to ruin America's youth. Their minds are going to be a wasteland. It shouldn't be allowed in school. It shouldn't be in colleges. I graduated because of a graphing calculator. Everything's just fine. The world didn't fall apart. Nothing bad happened. What happened? We took the engineers away from the menial task of calculating answers to the value added side of using the answers to solve complicated problems. Don't listen to the noise. AI is just math. It's not sentient. It's not all knowing. It's just math. Okay. Here is the challenge with AI. Okay? We've tried to engineer this out of our user interface. Like we have a little feature that helps you augment your input. So like before I was saying prompt engineering is just a fancy Google search. The reason why I'm saying that is because literally I do it for you, right? So you type in ladder safety and it says, you can click a little button like Clippy from Microsoft Word. It'll say, hey, if you change it like this, you get a better output. Click.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with AI. Okay. I'm going to ask you a Christian. Christian, I'm going to ask you a question. I think this will kind of solidify it.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian, pack for vacation. Are you going to throw a jacket in your suitcase? Are you going to throw snow boots in your
where am I going to, where am I going? Yeah.
Right. Like, Christian, why aren't you packing for vacation? Pack for vacation. Versus this. Hey, Christian, we're going to the beach in June. Pack for vacation.
Sounds good. See you then.
It's just a little context. A little context. So, I had a challenge with, it's a Fortune 50 construction company. They were using our software, and I followed up with him. And he goes, too expensive and not accurate enough. Well, first of all, accuracy is a major problem. I don't care about expensive. Expensive is subjective. But accurate enough. Well, in my privacy policy, I have, if there is something that is inaccurate, I can go into the data and look at it. That's the only time I can look at data. The gentleman asked a question, and here was the question. Masonry wall. Okay. What about the masonry wall? And that's why he said it wasn't accurate. Well, I looked at the response. It was absolutely accurate for the question he asked. Because it gave him an overview of the masonry wall and gave him the best practices for a masonry wall. Really, what he was really trying to understand is best practices around rebar and concrete whenever they pour that into the masonry wall. That's the challenge with AI today. The answer is going to, I said it earlier, accurate, not applicable. There's a caveat to accurate based on your input. So you have to be trained and know its limitations.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting analogy, which maybe you've come across or thought about around oil. So people have said for a long time, data's the new oil. And oil itself isn't actually valuable, is it? It's only valuable when you take it out of the ground. It's not valuable. It's only valuable once you've done something with it, once you've refined that oil. And I think that's where this is really interesting, because the AI can kind of sit between the data and do some of that refinement and then get it to you. And then you're in a position to do the most value added tasks with that refined data. But as you say, you've got to be thinking about it in the right way and asking it the right questions and using the right models in the first place and so on and so forth. So there are layers of complexity there, but it should really accelerate the outcomes that we can get as safety professionals, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to borrow that, by the way. And I'm going to try to remember and credit you on it. But that's a great analogy. One that I used at, I spoke at a major auto safety forum here in the US. All the major players were there, right? And the way that I explained it to them, it's kind of like this. If I think about a vehicle, right? What is the definition of a vehicle? It moves something from point A to point B under its own power. That's a vehicle. So if I say the SUV that's in your driveway, is that a vehicle? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Is an F1 car, is that a vehicle? Yeah, it moves a person from point A to point B. Is a dump truck a vehicle? Well, yeah, absolutely. Would you ever take a dump truck to a drive-through or on an F1 course? No, you wouldn't. It's the same thing with AI. Think of AI as the engine sitting in each one of those, but then you've got the structure and everything else that makes it fit for purpose.
Yeah.
So if all you're doing is taking that engine and tuning it, right, for high torque, for like a dump truck, but you put it in a F1 car, is it going to do anything? No, it's not. And then you're going to be upset and say, AI is not going to work. Well, no, it's because you have it purpose built. Right? So that's the analogy I use. I love your oil analogy because it's better. That's what I use as well, just vehicle. If I say vehicle, you mean a lot of things. Same thing with AI.
Yeah, makes good sense. So what would be the learning curve then? I mean, where, you know, if somebody sort of was listening to this, or watching us and thinking, yeah, like, oh, this sounds interesting, but I've never even dipped my toe in the water. Like, what's the learning curve and what's the journey they need to go on, do you think, to sort of start to be able to get some of the benefits from this?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk in two different ways. So the first one is a realization just from talking with about 300 people at ASSP. And what I found out is they kind of know what AI is, but they don't know how to deploy it, what to use it for, right? So the first challenge is the use cases where you drive benefit from that investment, okay? So where I think of it in is, for instance, this morning, having coffee, right? I'm like, I need to write an article for LinkedIn. Pull out ChatGPT, do talk to text. And I tell it exactly what I want the article to be. I created the article in less than 2 minutes before I drank my coffee. Someone not using AI, how long is that going to take them?
An hour, maybe.
An hour, right? And that's if you have your thoughts of what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the big impact of it. So here's how I would say to dip your toe into AI. You can watch videos, you can listen to people like me talk. Nothing's going to be more valuable than you use it. Use it. So 7-day free trials, no matter who the application is, use it in your environment. Grab it, go out into the field, ask it questions, test it against your environment. See if it will work in your environment. You will learn more in that situation than you ever will watching a video or going to a conference and hearing someone hypothesize about what it could do. And it cracks me up, Christian, because I see all these guys talking on stage. Not one of them have built anything.
Yeah.
None of them. I've built it. I've seen what it can do. Go use it. Take that first jump and don't stop if you see something that scares you. Call and ask a question because it may be a user behavior challenge, not an AI challenge, right? Just like cars when they were rolled out. People would say, I got stranded. Horse never leaves me stranded.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you ran out of gas. Did we abandon cars? Because we built an infrastructure for gas.
Yeah.
Don't do the same thing with AI. There's going to be challenges. Push through.
Yeah. I like that. Just dive in and give it a go. What about kind of any concerns about maybe complexity or cost? You know, how would you kind of address those things?
Yeah. So one of the key things, and I talk about this a lot, I've got several videos on our YouTube page. If anyone wants to go there and take a look, it's a free resource. Just look up SafetyGPT. So what I say is your ideas matter from a safety manager standpoint. We are beaten down as safety managers. We don't have funds, right? We get in trouble when somebody gets hurt, even though we didn't have the funds. We usually don't get our ideas approved, right?
Yeah.
So here is my advice to the overall safety group. Here's how you get your ideas approved. So you got to start with your ideas getting approved so you can impact workers. First thing, you start with the benefit. Christian, I have seen so many people get shot down. And guys, I've been on those executive teams that shot people down.
Yeah.
Because they come and here's what they say, Christian. I've got AI guided safety. It's going to help us be safe. Okay, cool. Yeah, we don't need it. Talk to you later. And then the safety person is like, why don't they listen? Do it like this instead. Hey, Christian, man, wouldn't it be nice if our workers were more engaged? Oh, man, yeah. Wouldn't it be nice? Don't you think that would help us with our safety programs and policies, like if they own safety more? Absolutely. You know, we spend about $120,000 a year on training, but it's a one and done. Training's important. Let's continue to do that. Wouldn't it be nice if we could leverage that investment? Yeah, absolutely. How much do you think that would be worth to you, Christian? Oh man, we paid 1.2 million last year in workers' comp claim. If we could just reduce that by 10%. Do you think that's possible if we can do those three things? Absolutely. Christian, I found something that's called AI guided safety. So then you go from benefit, right? Benefit. Then you go into what it is, because they're still going to want to know. So then you explain to them, yeah, what it does is it allows people to be able to, take a photo, ask a safety question, review with their manager. But really what it does is it gives us insights to the gaps of knowledge that they have. Every question they ask, I can see it on the back end. And I know that we got a problem with trenching and excavation in our project in Austin. And that's how I'm going to mitigate those injuries.
Yep.
Okay, this sounds good. How are we going to realize those benefits? Third part, a plan. Got to have a plan. And then I'll get to your question around cost. So you've got to have a plan. Benefit, start with benefit, then it's what you're going to do, and then your plan to see those benefits. And here's how it goes. Listen, we're going to start off with a phase 1 implementation. It's only going to be our safety measures. We're going to keep it really tight. Why, Christian? Because it's lower cost. You can realize the benefits easier so that you're not having to use a lot of political capital, right? Start with phase 1. And then once we build our best practices, and here's how we're going to do it, Christian, we're going to start every morning with a question to our workers on what task has you worked. Then we're going to take a photo at the end of every day of a high risk task that we're working on to brainstorm. Okay? Then we're going to thumbs up, thumbs down. That's called machine learning, right? That's what the thumbs up and thumbs down is. It actually tunes the model for you.
Yeah.
And then after 60 days, we're going to roll it out to our foreman. We're not going to go to the workers yet. We're going to wait until about 6 months in before we go to the worker level, because there's some data that we want to curate for them. Now you've delivered a plan.
Yeah.
So cost. I'll give you one example, right? Gentleman called me from a company in Pennsylvania. He found us online, downloaded it, never heard of him. I call him because I call everybody just to see how they like the system, Christian. And I go, hey, you've been on it for a month. You're one of my top users. Like, you're just burning through credits left and right. This is awesome. Give me some advice. What has it done for you? He goes, it saved 40 hours this month. What? Like, I didn't expect it 10 hours, right? 2 hours a week, maybe.
Yeah.
He goes, no, 40 hours. And I go, why? He goes, 1 day a week I spend in the office, toolbox talks, inspections, schedules, training, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I've been able to take that and I've been able to be out in the field. Now, 40 hours, let's say you get paid $25 an hour, that's on the low side, right? Fully loaded cost is 30%, that's insurance and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
About, let's say $30.
Yep.
$30 a week, well, $30 per hour. That's $1,200 per month.
Yep.
Our app is $19.99. I should charge more. But that's not the goal. The goal is to help workers, right? And I can't help workers if I am priced so high and I'm making a lot of money, but nobody's using it. That's not fair. We've got to disrupt things. We've got to remove the silos. We've got to stop being greedy. Let's get this in the hands of the workers. And so that's how he built his business case.
Yeah. Nice. Makes good sense. So, Josh, give us a quick whiz through what exactly because we've been speaking about, trends and the marketplace and so on. Tell us kind of a bit more specifically what it is that you're doing with Safety GPT.
Yeah, so this is an exciting time for safety. We are blue collar tech, focused on bringing white collar and blue collar together so that workers can go home safe and companies can get compliance. It's been enough of us versus them. We've killed enough people doing that. It's time to bring both parties together, and we can do it easily. That's what we're hyper focused on. So right now we have about 6 widgets. We call our widgets features, right? And it looks just like when you open it up, it looks just like your iPhone screen, right? And so we tried to model this so it's familiar, not scary. And by the way, I'm a big fan of Tron, the movie. So it's got a little bit of Tron flavor to it. That's why the colors are so weird. So we're hyper focused on that collaboration and bringing those parties together to have a safe day. That's why our motto is have a safe day.
Yeah.
So today we've got 6 widgets that reside within the application. We've already got a roadmap of 47 widgets that we're going to launch. And it's every use case you can imagine that a safety manager has to use, right?
Yeah.
So a good example is inspections, right? That's the next thing we're going to launch. And it's dynamic, real time. You can literally mash a button and it pops up a little window that shows you what safe looks like. Why is that important, Christian? Because inspections are only as good as the knowledge base that the person has who's doing the inspection.
Yeah.
Right? And the bias that they bring to the table. I can now arm them with unlimited information and know the difference between right and wrong. So that's the goal, right? And we're launching all these other ones throughout the rest of the year. We've got strategic partnerships that we're executing against. I'd say the next big thing for Safety GPT, I'd love to see a dip in fatalities next year because we've got more people in construction using our application. I'd love to see it go down for once. That would be a big win for us. And all those other features and widgets and all those wonderful things that we're creating, if it plays a part in that, that's success. So that's what we're focused on. We're focused on creating those widgets and launching them as quick as we possibly can.
Nice. And just quickly, I mean, kind of where are you up to? Because I think you said before we hit record, you're maybe a couple of months into the kind of monetization bit where you've actually got started charging and getting paying customers. So how are you doing in terms of like onboarding and stuff?
So it's amazing. I think I told you this. Like I've spent 15 years turning ideas into money for startups, all across the U.S. from fintech to dump truck marketplaces and Uber of dump trucks, all that kind of stuff. I've never seen an acceleration like this. We've already hit milestones that companies who have been around for 3 or 4 years, right, are hitting. And it's getting the investor world talking. Here's the important thing, though. I've worked with private equity groups and I've worked with VC funds. If any PE or VC is out there, I don't want your money. Don't need it, don't want it. And here's why. They don't understand worker safety. They understand money.
Yeah.
I care more about worker safety. And so that's what we're going to stay hyper-focused on. We're going to keep investment at arm's length. We bootstrap this whole thing ourselves. And we're going to build something that connects blue collar and white collar together.
Love it. So where can people learn more, Josh?
Yeah, so we're in all the cool places, right? Like I'm 46 years old. I never use TikTok. Now I use TikTok. If you want to see safety with like Metallica playing in the background, that's a good place for it. LinkedIn, I would highly recommend following me on LinkedIn and following Safety GPT on LinkedIn. We're a resource, guys. We can help you uncover if there's AI snake oil, and there's a lot of AI snake oil out there. There's a lot of people who are repainting generic models and then writing a prompt and passing it off as bespoke systems. We're a resource for you. We can show you the questions to ask to make sure you're getting the right thing. Whether it's us or not, that's it. I don't care about that. I care about good decisions. So LinkedIn, the other one is YouTube, and then you can go to our website, safetygpt.io. My best friend bought.com and wants to sell it to me for 45 grand. So I'm on .io right now until he gives it to me. That's where we can go, and all the little buttons there are like little links to videos. I'm ADD, so I have to have images instead of long form photographs. That's why I would recommend it.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for sharing your story and what you're up to and how you see the world and all this exciting stuff that's going on with AI. I really found it useful. I'm sure the audience did as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Can I say one last thing, Christian?
Yeah, of course.
I want to share appreciation to these worker advocates. We put our life on the line every day. You invest in your skills to keep others safe. You are truly a servant leader. You are a worker's advocate. Be that leader that your workers need. They don't have a voice. You are their voice. Step up and stand up for your workers. Their lives matter. Their families love them. Let's help them come home safe. Even if it's not my technology, explore everything
Yeah.
and see if it'll help them. And I want to personally say thank you to every safety manager out there for what you do.
Yeah. Great words to finish off on, and I'm definitely 100% behind you on that one. So so thanks, Josh, and thanks to you for joining Josh and I on this week's podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again next week with another episode. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.